Good morning, this is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for August 24th, 9 a.m. We have Tropical Storm Isaac in the Caribbean Sea. That's what's on everybody's mind. Let's get to it. Let's start out first of all with the graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have Isaac in the Caribbean, of course. We have Joyce out here that really has been torn apart by a big upper level low tangling with this system. It's going to head in the general direction of Bermuda, but it looks like this system is going to be weak by the time it gets there, right around the same time that Isaac could be making landfall in the United States, and it's going to be really a non-story. And then we have a new tropical wave coming off Africa, but again we have a big trough out here, so these systems are going to have trouble developing over the next week or so, and there's more tropical waves coming off Africa that we'll watch down the road. But it looks like this could potentially develop. There's about a 30% chance of development. The next named storm would be Kirk, so we'll keep an eye out for that. But right now, all eyes are on Tropical Storm Isaac. Let's get right to the HurTrack program and run our animation here and see what's going to happen with this system. It's going to affect Haiti later today. It's already affecting Hispaniola, although they're not getting much rain there right now. And then the system's going to head into the mountainous terrain of eastern Cuba and then cross into the Florida Straits, where it will head towards Key West or the lower Florida Keys, and that would be on Sunday. And then the system will skirt the west coast of Florida and head up towards the Florida Panhandle. Now this is based on the 5 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center, showing a Category 1 hurricane heading up into the Florida Panhandle. But 4-day forecast, there is quite an error on these, and I'm urging everybody from say New Orleans all the way down to Tampa. Even the Florida Peninsula is still not completely out of the possibility of being affected by this system, and I'll show you the reason why when I show you the upper level air charts here in a minute. But it's not a done deal that this is not going to affect the peninsula of Florida either. So everybody needs to pay close attention to this. The good news on this all is that it looks like this is not going to be an intense hurricane. I'll get to the reasons of that in just a minute as well. But we have wind shear and land masses and everything else, and the system is really poorly organized. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you a cone of error here of using the HurTrack program, showing what the indications are for timing and everything, and who has to be aware of when. And let me get right back to the beginning of where the system starts here, and then we'll go ahead and pull that information up. Let's go ahead and plot the official forecast with the average error. And there it is. Okay, we have the orange areas are 36-hour forecast, and the not the 3-day forecast, and the green area up here is the 5-day. And notice how it gets wider at the top, which is typical. And you've got to realize we have a trough of low pressure on the east coast, so it could be all the way over here towards Jacksonville, or it could be all the way over here towards western Louisiana. And basically all of Cuba is going to be affected by this system in one way or the other. But keep in mind with this system, it's a large system, and I'm going to show you some images of radar from Puerto Rico right now, which is well removed from the center of Isaac, and they're getting pounded right now by heavy rain. So whoever's has to deal with this is a large wind field, and even though you may not get the center of the storm, you're still going to get the effects of it because this is a broad system. But anyway, the track is something like this from the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. But let's go ahead and put up the models, and let's go ahead and throw all the models up on the screen here so you can see what kind of thinking is of all the models combined, and graphically show. There we go. And you know, basically a tight clustering of the models over the Keys, going into the eastern Gulf of Mexico and up towards the Florida Panhandle. But notice up here at the very top of the screen, all the models tend to hook off to the north and northeast, and that's in response to a trough. And this is all a timing issue. The problem is Isaac has been kind of misbehaving down there south of Hispaniola. It should have been a little bit further west by now, or west-northwest, and it's kind of slowed down, and it's meandering, and the center keeps reforming, and there's multiple centers and the whole 9 yards. So the system is having trouble getting its act together, and it's really not moving as quickly as what was anticipated in the models. So the more this slows down, the more the models may actually shift to the east. And that's what my concern is that we may still have a problem with the convention in the Tampa Bay area coming up at the beginning of the week, and the ramifications of that, and this thing could right up the west coast of Florida quite conceivably if this trough digs down and the system continues to slow down a little bit rather than speeding up. We could have some issues. So everybody needs to pay a close attention to this cone of error, because that's indications are that this could go one way or the other, and everybody needs to pay close attention. All right, let's get to the Recon, and they're flying around down there right now. And here's all the wind barbs. We're seeing 39 knot winds, well removed from the center. There's a 41 knot gust, well removed from the center. And there's a 48 knot gust right there. And basically around 40 knots all around the center. Now if we remove the observations, use just the vortex message from the center of the storm, there it is, maximum surface winds 31 knots, 1,000 millibars. Now the millibars have dropped and the winds take a little while to catch up, so this is a strengthening system. Question is it going to be a hurricane? It looks unlikely it's going to be a hurricane by the time it gets to Haiti and Cuba, although it's still possible. Let's get to some images here. And first of all, this is the wind shear forecast from the GFS going out to 48 hours. And notice the greens and the light green colors here off the southeast Florida coast. This is in response to a trough of low pressure that's going to be on the east coast, and it's going to cause southwesterly wind shear. And this could be a factor. This is 48 hours out. This would be when Isaac is somewhere down, you know, closing in on the Florida Straits here, and we're going to have southwesterly wind shear. So this, even though the system has to tangle with land, it still might have to deal with wind shear as well, as the system has never really been a really well organized storm. It's going to have a lot of wind shear to deal with over the Florida Straits, so it may not even have a chance. Once it gets back out over the water, this system might continue to struggle right on through its journeys. Now here is the scatterometer winds out in the Caribbean, showing the massive size of this wind field. And look at this, all the way down here, all the way through Puerto Rico and up in here. We're talking winds 30 to 35 knots at the surface out here, according to the wave action. And so it's quite a large wind field. So again, don't focus on the center of this because it's an expansive system. I can tell you that Haiti, Hispaniola, and all of Cuba is going to have to deal with tropical storm force winds in one way or the other, as well as probably the entire Florida peninsula, unless it goes much further west than we're expecting. There's going to be strong gusty winds over the weekend, going into early next week, all the way up into the Florida Panhandle, going into next week. So this is a large system. Keep that in mind. Here are the pressures from sailweather.info, and the simplest way to explain the tropics to people is the area of lowest pressure, the path of least resistance, is where a hurricane or a tropical storm is going to go. So you look at pressures, and we have 10, 16 millibars over here, and we have 10, 15 millibars over here, and 10, 13 down here. So the lowest pressures are in between these two pressure fields. So you draw the line, and there you go. There's your pressure field and the potential track. You always look for pressures to where the path of least resistance is where the storm generally tends to want to go. So we'll keep an eye on these pressures. And again, Jim's predictions for the week page is where you can find all these links and pages. Here's a radar out of Puerto Rico. Look at this massive rain coming in. They have marine warnings up. And again, this is well removed from the center. So again, do not focus on the center of this storm. This is a really broad circulation, and the storms go way out from the center. This is way, way far away from the center of circulation. They're getting hammered here in Puerto Rico this morning. Here are the upper level winds from the University of Wisconsin. This is all the all-important upper level winds. We have this low pressure system off Georgia here, and here's our trough, and there's the wind shear out in front of this system. But this could also be a steering mechanism. We have the high pressure ridge out in the Atlantic, 1024 millibars, that's steering the system generally off to the west-northwest. But as it gets a little bit further west here in this general area, it should start going more poleward, and that is why some of the models are kind of having it going very close to the peninsula of Florida before it breaks away and heads over toward the Panhandle. But a lot can change between now and then. But the way it looks right now, Bridge is going to break down a little bit, and this trough is going to start steering this thing more to the northwest. So that's why I'm saying people in Florida need to still watch this thing very closely, because it's going to be a rain event at the very least. And of course, out here is Joyce, tropical depression Joyce, being wrapped in an upper level low out here. So that's not really going to develop very much as it continues to race off to the northwest. We're not too worried about Joyce. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the other image here of the best perform. Oh, one more image I wanted to show you, and that is the overall best performing model on this system so far has been the SPC3 model. This has been off by about 93 miles using all the models at Hurricane City. It's been off by only 93 miles. This model has by far outperformed the GFDL ensemble models, the aviation ensembles, everything else. So this model here is the best performer, and you can see it takes it riding up the north coast of Cuba, cutting through the northern Florida Keys, getting very near Naples, Florida, and then bouncing off and heading towards the Florida Panhandle. So that is the best performing model by far of all the models. All right, let's go ahead and switch sources to show you the Hurricane City model maps. And these are the best performing models over the past 24 hours. And the red is the best performer, and that is the aviation operational model, same as the GFS. And we're showing that's the position for the 29th inland over the Florida Panhandle. And what's interesting is none of these models are really predicting a very strong hurricane up here. Talking maybe 70-mile-an-hour winds. The second best performer, SPC3, that's the one I just told you about. Over the last 24 hours, it's the second best performer. But overall, since the beginning of the storm, when it was at Invest out in the open Atlantic, the SPC3 has been the best performer overall. That's showing around 70 miles per hour at landfall up around Fort Walton Beach and Destin, Florida. And then we have the DRCL model, again 85-mile-per-hour winds, and that's over towards Pensacola, Florida. So watch these models on the front page of Hurricane City for changes as this system might shift a little, might shift depending on this trough out there and the timing. And timing is everything, as I explained. The system is slowed down. It's not moving like we expected it to at this point, so things can change over time as this progresses. And again, look at the warm sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. We're talking temperatures 85, 86 degrees down here, so there's plenty of fuel, but the problem is the upper level winds, and that might create a bit of a problem. The other thing to note is, well, generally when you get hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico compared to the Caribbean, all the convection seems to be to the south of the center, like what's happening with Isaac this morning. And then you have the Gulf of Mexico situation. When they get into the Gulf, the system seems to dry out on the south side, and all the convection gets to the north of the center of circulation. We see that a lot with hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. So this thing's going to do a flip-flop when it gets in the Gulf. Question is how much shear is there going to be, and how much strengthening potential is there? And that is always the million-dollar question. Now here are the mouse overbowl models at Hurricane City, and the GFDL is shifted the furthest to the east over the South Florida area, and out here to the west we have the LBAR taking it into Pensacola. So these best performing, actually the model history on Isaac can be found a little bit further down the site here. You scroll down the site and you go to this link right here where it says Isaac model history, and it pulls up the page with all the Isaac history over the past few days of what the models have been showing. One more thing I wanted to show you. I believe I have a satellite image looping here of Isaac, and yeah, this is the visible loop of our system. And again, it's a very poorly organized system, but you know the center is right in this area right here, and again all the convection is to the south. But again, even up here in Puerto Rico we have very high winds and storms out here. So if you basically draw a circle here, this is a pretty large system, and moving off to that direction, you can see how everybody's going to be affected by the weekend by this system. So everybody needs to pay close attention, but we'll see if it gets better organized. Pressure's dropping a little bit, but its system is still rather poorly organized. Well, that's it for now. Again, our current feature is Oviedo, Dominican Republic. It may shift to maybe Port Salut, Haiti, which is on the peninsula of Haiti later on this evening as this moves through Haiti and then into eastern Cuba. Maybe Baracoa or Manzanillo, Cuba will be featured. You keep track of all the local information. Check back to hurricanecity.tv for sporadic. We show satellite pictures and radars and Hurricane WatchNet and some other stuff sporadically throughout as these systems are moving on their journeys. And check that out at hurricanecity.tv. Check out hurricanecity.com for the latest on Isaac. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane